I, 28F, stood at the altar, my hands trembling slightly in Mark's. The scent of lilies and old polished wood filled the church. Everything was perfect. The dress, a cascade of white lace my mother had fussed over for months. The guests, a sea of smiling faces. Mark, 30M, my handsome, charming Mark, was looking at me with what I thought was pure adoration. I had never felt so certain about anything in my entire life. I was building a future with the man I loved, a man who supported my dreams and celebrated my successes. My career was thriving, and I had been diligently saving for years, building a retirement fund that gave me a sense of security and pride. Mark always said he admired my discipline, my ability to plan for our future. The minister smiled warmly. His voice was a low, comforting rumble in the vast, silent space. He was asking the question, the one everyone waits for. If anyone here has any reason why these two should not be joined in holy matrimony, let them speak now or forever hold their peace. It was a formality, a charming, old-fashioned piece of the ceremony that no one ever actually responds to. A moment of quiet passed, filled with the collective held breath of our friends and family. I smiled at Mark, ready to move on to the vows, to the rest of our lives. Then, a voice cut through the silence. It was sharp and clear and utterly unmistakable. I object. Every head in the church swiveled. My head snapped toward the source of the sound. It was my father. He was standing in the front pew, his face pale but his expression hard as stone. My mother was tugging at his sleeve, her eyes wide with horror, whispering his name in a frantic hiss. Mark's hand tightened on mine. "What is he doing?" he whispered, his voice tight with confusion and anger. I could only shake my head, my heart starting to pound a frantic, sick rhythm against my ribs. "Dad?" I said, my voice barely a whisper. My father took a step into the aisle, his eyes locked on mine. He ignored the gasps, the murmurs rippling through the guests. He ignored my mother's desperate pleas. He looked past Mark as if he were not even there and spoke directly to me, his voice ringing with a terrible certainty that chilled me to the bone. "He just stole her retirement fund." The entire church went dead silent. It was not a respectful silence. It was a vacuum, a thick, heavy absence of sound that pressed in on me from all sides. Every eye was on me, on Mark, on my father. The air crackled with shock and disbelief. My smile had frozen on my face, a brittle, painful thing. Mark dropped my hand as if it had burned him. "What did you say?" Mark's voice was dangerously low. He turned to face my father, his charming smile gone, replaced by a mask of cold fury. My father did not flinch. "You heard me," he said, his voice steady. "You stole her money. All of it." My mother finally found her voice. "Robert, stop this right now. You are ruining your daughter's wedding." "Sit down," she cried, her voice choked with tears and mortification. But my father stood his ground. He held up a single folded piece of paper. It was shaking in his hand, but his resolve was unshakable. "I have the proof right here," he said. "A bank statement. A withdrawal of $85,000 transferred to an account in your name 2 days ago." $85,000. The number echoed in the cavernous silence of the church. It was the exact amount in my retirement account. The fund I had so carefully built, dollar by dollar, over the last decade. A wave of nausea washed over me. This could not be happening. It was a nightmare. A horrible, cruel joke. "This is insane," Mark said, turning back to me, his eyes wide and pleading. "Clara, honey, you know your dad has never liked me. He is making this up. This is a desperate attempt to stop us from being happy. Tell him. Tell everyone he is lying." I looked from Mark's desperate face to my father's grim, determined one. My father was a quiet man, a gentle man. I had never seen him cause a scene in his life. He hated conflict. For him to do this, here, in front of everyone we knew, meant he was absolutely certain. It meant he believed it with every fiber of his being. My own voice felt trapped in my throat. I tried to speak, but only a choked sound came out. The minister, looking completely flustered, stepped forward. Perhaps the family should retire to the vestry to discuss this matter privately, he suggested, his voice trembling. The silence broke. A cacophony of whispers erupted throughout the church. People were staring, their faces a mixture of pity, curiosity, and scandalized delight. My perfect day, my perfect life, had just shattered into a million pieces right here at the altar. And in the center of the wreckage, I stood, torn between the man I was about to marry and the father who had just accused him of the ultimate betrayal. I did not know who to believe, but a cold, terrifying dread was beginning to seep into my heart. My father would not do this without a reason. He would not lie. Mark grabbed my arm, his grip surprisingly tight. Clara, we have to get out of here. We can go, just leave. We do not need this, he urged, his voice a frantic whisper in my ear. He was trying to pull me toward the side door, away from the pews, away from my father. But I planted my feet. I could not run. I could not pretend this was not happening. I pulled my arm from his grasp and looked at my father. His eyes were filled with pain, but also with a fierce, protective love. He had just detonated a bomb in the middle of my life, but he had done it for me. I had to know why. Dad, I said, my voice finally finding its strength, though it trembled. Show me. The chaos of the church faded into a dull roar as we moved into the small, wood-paneled vestry. My mother was sobbing hysterically in a corner, comforted by my aunt. Mark's parents, the Hamiltons, stood stiffly by the door, their faces tight with fury and humiliation. Mark was pacing back and forth like a caged animal, running his hands through his perfectly styled hair. My father stood near the small table in the center of the room, the folded paper still clutched in his hand. I felt numb, as if I were watching a movie about someone else's life. This is a misunderstanding, Mark said, stopping his pacing to face my father. A terrible, horrible misunderstanding. Robert, I do not know what you think you saw, but you are wrong. You have to tell them you are wrong. I am not wrong, my dad said calmly. He looked at me, his gaze softening. Clara, I am so sorry. I never wanted to do this. Not like this. But I could not let you marry him. I could not let you tie your life to a thief. Do not call my son a thief, Mr. Hamilton boomed, stepping forward. His face was red with anger. How dare you make such an outrageous accusation in a house of God on their wedding day? I dare because it is the truth, my father replied, his voice never rising, which somehow made it more powerful. He unfolded the paper and laid it on the table. This is a statement from Clara's retirement account. I got it in the mail yesterday. It was addressed to our house by mistake. I almost threw it away. My address was still listed as my parents' house on some of my older accounts. I had never gotten around to changing it. A simple, careless oversight that had apparently changed the course of my life. I stepped forward and looked at the paper. There it was, in stark black and white. A withdrawal. The date? 2 days ago. The amount, $85,212.41. And the transfer destination, a bank account number I did not recognize, under a name that made my blood run cold. Mark Hamilton. No, I whispered. I felt the floor tilt beneath my feet. Clara, baby, let me explain, Mark said, rushing to my side. He tried to take my hand, but I snatched it away. This is not what it looks like. I was going to tell you. Tell me what? I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. That you emptied my retirement account 2 days before our wedding? It was a business opportunity, he said, his voice rising in desperation. A sure thing. An investment that was going to double, maybe triple in a month. I was going to put it all back, plus the profits before you even noticed. It was going to be a surprise. A wedding gift to start our new life. His words sounded hollow, rehearsed. An investment. A surprise. It was the kind of plausible, charming lie he was so good at telling. The kind of lie I had probably believed 100 times before without even realizing it. But seeing the proof on that paper, the sheer audacity of it, broke the spell. "You stole my money, Mark," I said, the words tasting like poison. "You took every penny I have saved for my future without asking me, and you were going to let me marry you under false pretenses. It was for us," he insisted. "For our future. I did it for you." "You did it for you," my father interjected, his voice like ice. "Just like you have been doing things for yourself this whole time. The little loans you never paid back. The dinners you let Clara always pay for. The car trouble that always seemed to happen when rent was due. I have seen it, we have all seen it, we just did not want to believe it." My mother let out a fresh wail. "Robert, please, we can sort this out. Mark, you will give the money back, of course. Right now. You will fix this." She was looking at him with pleading eyes, still trying to salvage the situation, to smooth over the cracks and pretend the beautiful vase was not already shattered on the floor. "Of course, Diane," Mark said, latching onto her desperation like a lifeline. "It is all in the investment account. It is safe. I can transfer it back. It might take a day or two for it to clear, but it is all there. This is just a misunderstanding about timing." His parents nodded eagerly. "See? A misunderstanding," Mr. Hamilton said, trying to regain control. "Now, I think we owe my son and his bride an apology for this interruption. We can still salvage this day." Salvage this day. The words made my stomach turn. They wanted me to walk back out there, back to the altar, and marry the man who had just admitted to draining my life savings behind my back. They wanted me to smile for the pictures, cut the cake, and pretend this monumental betrayal had never happened. All for the sake of appearances. I looked at Mark. He was watching me, a hopeful, desperate smile playing on his lips. He thought he could fix this. He thought his charm, his promises, could erase what he had done. He thought I was the same woman who had walked down that aisle an hour ago, blinded by love and trust. He was wrong. That woman was gone. In her place was someone cold and clear-eyed and filled with a rage so profound it felt like it could burn the whole church down. I picked up the bank statement from the table. I folded it carefully and tucked it into the small purse my maid of honor, Lena, was holding for me. She had been standing silently in the corner, her expression a mask of fury on my behalf. She gave my hand a supportive squeeze. I turned to the minister, who was still hovering awkwardly near the door. "I am sorry to have wasted your time," I said, my voice clear and steady. "There will not be a wedding." The finality in my voice seemed to shock everyone into silence again. Mark's face fell. His parents looked aghast. My mother started crying again, harder this time. "Clara, do not be hasty," my mother begged. "Think about the guests. Think about the shame." "I am thinking about the shame," I said, my gaze locking with Mark's. "The shame of almost marrying a man who sees me not as a partner but as a bank account to be emptied. The shame of realizing the man I loved is a liar and a thief." Mark flinched as if I had slapped him. "Clara, you are emotional," he said, trying to sound reasonable, but a new edge of panic had crept into his voice. "You are not thinking clearly. Let us just calm down and talk this through." "There is nothing to talk through," I said. "You have until the end of the day to return every single cent to my account. If it is not there, the next conversation we have will be with the police." "You would not do that," he scoffed, but his eyes betrayed his fear. "Try me," I said. I turned to my father. "Dad, can you take me home?" He nodded, a look of immense relief washing over his face. He put a protective arm around my shoulders. As we walked toward the door, past the stunned faces of the Hamiltons and my weeping mother, I did not look back. I walked out of the vestry, out of the church, and away from the life I thought I wanted. The beautiful white dress felt like a costume, a ridiculous parody of a dream that had turned into a nightmare. The only thing that felt real was the cold, hard certainty in my heart. This was not over, not by a long shot. The ride back to my parents' house was silent. My father drove, his hands tight on the steering wheel. I stared out the window, the suburban streets blurring past. The wedding dress felt heavy and restrictive, a cage of lace and tulle. As soon as we walked through the door, I went straight to my old bedroom and tore it off, letting it pool on the floor like a shed skin. I put on a pair of old jeans and a sweatshirt. Clothes that felt real. That felt like me. When I came back downstairs, my dad was in the kitchen, making a pot of coffee. The familiar, comforting smell filled the air. He looked up as I entered, his face etched with worry. "Are you all right?" he asked softly. I shook my head. "No, but I will be." I sat down at the kitchen table, the same table where I had done my homework as a child. It felt strange to be back here, seeking refuge in the home I had been so eager to leave. "Dad, how did you know?" "Really know?" He poured 2 mugs of coffee and sat down across from me. "I have had a bad feeling about him for a while, honey. It was nothing I could put my finger on at first. Just little things. The way he always steered the conversation to money. The way he looked at your things, your car, your apartment. It was not admiration. It was appraisal." I thought back, and a sick feeling started to churn in my stomach. He was right. Mark had always been very interested in my finances. He called it planning for our future, but his questions were always about my assets, my salary, my savings. He never had much to contribute himself. There was always an excuse, a deal that fell through, a client who paid late, an unexpected expense. I had always accepted his explanations, eager to be the supportive, understanding partner. I had been a fool. "About a month ago," my dad continued, "I was helping you clear out some old boxes from the garage. I saw a credit card bill of yours that had fallen on the floor. I should not have looked, I know, but I did. And I saw a cash advance for $5,000. I asked you about it, remember? You told me it was for a wedding deposit." I did remember. I had asked Mark to pay the caterer's deposit. He told me he had, and that I could pay him back. I had given him the cash, not a check. Another stupid, trusting mistake. "It bothered me," my dad said. "So I did something I am not proud of. I called the caterer. I pretended to be Mark's assistant, just confirming the payment details. They told me the deposit had been paid with your credit card, not his, and that you had paid him in cash for it." My breath hitched. "He took the cash and paid with my card?" My dad nodded grimly. "He pocketed the $5,000. That is when I knew he was not just careless with money. He was actively stealing from you. So I hired a private investigator." I stared at him, stunned. "You hired a PI?" "I had to," he said, his voice heavy with regret. "I had to know the truth before I let you marry him. I did not want to believe it, Clara. I prayed I was wrong. The investigator's initial report came back 2 days ago. It showed Mark had significant gambling debts, and that he had been systematically draining small amounts from you for months. Then the bank statement arrived yesterday. It was the final, terrible proof. I could not stay silent." He looked at me, his eyes pleading for understanding. "I am so sorry, sweetheart. I know today was a nightmare. I ruined your wedding." Tears I had been holding back finally started to fall, but they were not tears of sadness for the wedding I had lost. They were tears of gratitude. I reached across the table and took his hand. "No, Dad," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "You did not ruin it. You saved me." We sat there for a long time, just holding hands. The coffee grew cold in our mugs. The shock was beginning to wear off, replaced by a cold, hard anger. Mark had not just stolen my money. He had stolen my trust. He had made a mockery of my love. He had played me for a fool, and he had almost gotten away with it. My phone started buzzing on the counter. I ignored it. It buzzed again and again. I knew it was him, or his parents, or my mother, who had probably been convinced by now that this was all a misunderstanding that could be fixed with a tearful apology and a promise to do better. Finally, I picked it up. A string of texts from Mark. "Clara, please answer me. We need to talk. This is not what it looks like. Your father is trying to sabotage us. I love you. Do not let him do this to us. I can fix it, I promise. Just talk to me." I read the messages and I felt nothing. No love, no pity. Just a profound, empty coldness. The man who wrote those words was a stranger to me. Then, a call came through. It was my mother. I took a deep breath and answered. "Clara?" "Oh, thank God," she said, her voice frantic. "I am here with the Hamiltons. We are all at their house. Mark is distraught, absolutely beside himself." "I am sure he is," I said, my voice flat. "Honey, he has explained everything," she went on, her words tumbling over each other. "It was a mistaken judgment, that is all. A foolish, impulsive decision. He was trying to do something nice for you, for your future. He is so sorry. His parents are prepared to help him return the money immediately." "Good," I said. "Then he can return it." There was a pause. "Well, that is the thing," she said, her voice dropping to a more conspiratorial tone. "The money is tied up in the investment. It will take a few days, maybe a week to liquidate. He cannot get it back today." Of course he could not. The lie was already starting to unravel. "So what we were thinking," my mother continued, her voice regaining its hopeful, peacemaking tone, "is that we can release a statement to the guests. We will say there was a family emergency, a medical issue with your father, perhaps, something to explain the postponement. Then you and Mark can talk this through. He will get the money back and we can reschedule. A smaller ceremony, maybe. It will all be fine. No one needs to know the details." I could not believe what I was hearing. She wanted me to lie, to cover for him, to protect his reputation and, by extension, our family's reputation, at the expense of my own dignity and security. "No," I said. "What do you mean, no?" she asked, her voice sharp with disbelief. "I mean, no, Mom. I am not lying for him. I am not rescheduling. I am not talking it through. It is over. The only thing I want from Mark Hamilton is my money." "Clara, you are being hysterical," she snapped. "You are throwing away your future over a mistake. He loves you." "Did he love me when he drained my retirement account?" I shot back, my anger finally boiling over. "Did he love me when he lied to my face about it for months? That is not love, Mom. That is theft. That is betrayal. And I will not stand for it. And I am very disappointed that you are." I could hear voices in the background. Mr. Hamilton, probably, coaching her on what to say. "Your father put these ideas in your head," she said, her voice hardening. "He has always been jealous of Mark's ambition." "Mark does not have ambition, Mom," I said, my voice dangerously low. "He has a gambling problem and a habit of stealing from women who trust him. Dad did not put ideas in my head. He opened my eyes to the truth you still refuse to see." I hung up before she could reply. I felt sick. My own mother was choosing to side with the man who had robbed me, all to avoid a little public embarrassment. The betrayal felt almost as sharp as Mark's. My dad was watching me, his expression pained. "I am sorry, Clara," he said. "Your mother? She cares too much about what other people think." "I know," I said, though it did not make it hurt any less. "So what now?" He sighed. "Now we get your money back, and we make sure he can never do this to anyone else." A new feeling was starting to take root in my heart, pushing past the hurt and the anger. It was determination. Cold, hard, and clear. They thought I was hysterical. They thought I was an emotional woman who would eventually calm down and see reason. They were about to find out just how wrong they were. The first thing I did was try to access my retirement account online. I went to the website, typed in my username, and then my password. Invalid credentials. The screen flashed back at me. I tried again, carefully. Same result. He had changed the password. Of course he had. He had probably done it right after he made the transfer, to lock me out, to buy himself time. The cold premeditation of it sent a shiver down my spine. I picked up the phone and called the financial institution. The hold music was infuriatingly cheerful. After what felt like an eternity, a polite-sounding man named David answered. "Hello, you have reached Omni Financial?" David speaking. "How can I help you today?" "Hello, David," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "My name is Clara Miller. I need some help with my retirement account. I seem to be locked out." "Certainly, Miss Miller. I can help with that," he said. "I just need to verify your identity. Can you please confirm your date of birth and the last 4 digits of your Social Security number?" I gave him the information. There was a pause as he typed. "Okay, thank you for that," he said. "I see your account here. It looks like the password was changed 3 days ago. Did you authorize that change?" "No, I did not," I said, my grip tightening on the phone. "I see," David said, his tone shifting slightly, becoming more cautious. "And are you calling about the recent large withdrawal from your account?" "Yes," I said, my heart pounding. "Yes, I am. Can you confirm the amount of that withdrawal, ma'am?" $85,212.41, I said, the number burned into my memory. There was another long pause. "Okay, Miss Miller," David said slowly. "According to our records, that transfer was initiated online 2 days ago. The request was authenticated using your security questions." "What were the questions?" I asked, a sense of dread creeping over me. The first was, "What was the name of your first pet?" The answer given was Buddy. The second was, "What is your mother's maiden name?" The answer given was Richards. Can you confirm those are correct? They were correct. Of course they were. Mark knew the answers to those questions. I had told him stories about my childhood dog, Buddy. He had helped me with the wedding invitations, which had my mother's full name on them. He had gathered the information he needed piece by piece, and I had handed it to him, clueless and trusting. "Yes, those are correct," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "But I did not authorize that transfer. My fiancé did it without my knowledge or consent. He stole my money." Saying the words out loud to a stranger made it horribly real. David was quiet for a moment. "I understand, ma'am. That is a very serious allegation. What I can do right now is place a freeze on your account to prevent any further activity. However, since the transfer was authenticated correctly and it was sent to an account in a name that is also listed as a secondary contact on your file." He trailed off, but I knew what he was saying. Mark was listed as my fiancé, my emergency contact. To the bank, this looked like a legitimate transaction between a couple. "What do you mean, secondary contact?" I asked, confused. "According to our records, a Mr. Mark Hamilton was added as a secondary contact with view-only access to your account 6 months ago. The request was made by phone and authenticated with your information." 6 months ago. I racked my brain. I remembered a call. Mark had been there. He said he was helping me consolidate my accounts, making sure everything was in order before the wedding. He had the bank on speakerphone and he had me confirm my details. He must have done it then, adding himself to my account while I was distracted, thinking he was being helpful and responsible. Every piece of the puzzle that clicked into place made the picture uglier and more horrifying. This was not an impulsive mistake. This was a long con. "I see," I said, my voice cold. "So what do I need to do to report this as fraud?" "You will need to file a police report, ma'am," David said, his voice now formal and procedural. "Once you have a case number, you can submit it to our fraud department, and they will open an investigation. I must advise you, however, that since the transaction was made from your IP address and authenticated correctly, recovering the funds can be a very difficult and lengthy process. My IP address. He had done it from my own apartment, on my own computer. He was smart. He had covered his tracks. He had made it look like I had done it myself. "Thank you, David," I said, my mind racing. "Please freeze the account immediately." "The freeze has been placed, Miss Miller. I am truly sorry you're going through this." I hung up the phone and stared at the wall. Difficult and lengthy. That meant there was a good chance I would never see that money again. The money I had worked so hard for, the foundation of my future, was gone. And the man who took it was at his parents' house, drinking tea with my mother, trying to spin a story that would save his skin. Anger, pure and undiluted, surged through me. It was so potent it made me dizzy. He was not going to get away with this. I did not care how difficult or lengthy it was. I would not let him win. "What did they say?" my dad asked, watching my face. I told him everything. The password change, the security questions. The fact that Mark had added himself as a contact 6 months ago, the need for a police report. He listened patiently, his expression growing darker with every word. When I finished, he stood up and started pacing the kitchen. "He is more cunning than I thought," he said. "He has been planning this for a long time. This was not just about a gambling debt. This was his endgame. Marry you, secure access to your finances, and then drain you dry." The word endgame hit me like a physical blow. It was so cold, so transactional. But it was the truth. Our entire relationship, the love I thought we shared, had been a means to an end for him. "So I file a police report," I said, the words feeling foreign in my mouth. "I go to the police and tell them my fiancé stole my life savings on the eve of our wedding." "Yes," my dad said, stopping his pacing to look at me. "That is exactly what you do, and you do it now, before he has time to move that money again, before your mother and the Hamiltons convince you to handle it quietly." He was right. Every minute I waited gave Mark more time to hide the money, to cover his tracks, to build his wall of lies. I stood up. "Okay," I said. "Let's go." The police station was a cold, sterile place that smelled of antiseptic and stale coffee. I sat across a metal desk from a detective named Miller. She was a no-nonsense woman with tired eyes who had probably heard every sad story imaginable. I told her mine, from the beginning. I tried to keep my voice even, to present the facts without emotion, but my voice still cracked when I talked about the wedding, about the moment my father objected. She listened patiently, taking notes. She did not seem surprised or shocked. She just nodded, her expression unreadable. "So you gave him your security information?" she asked when I was finished. "Not directly," I said. "He already knew the answers. They were things he learned over the course of our relationship." "And you believe he transferred the money from your computer? At your apartment?" "Yes. The bank said it came from my IP address." Detective Miller sighed and put down her pen. "Ma'am, I am going to be honest with you. This is a tough case. You lived together. You were engaged to be married. You shared financial information. He is going to say this was a joint decision, that you gave him permission to invest the money, and now you have buyer's remorse. It becomes a he said, she said situation. A civil matter, not a criminal one." "But it was not a joint decision," I insisted, my frustration mounting. "I never gave him permission. He stole it." "I understand that is what you are saying," she said calmly. "But do you have any proof of that? Any texts, emails, or recordings where he admits to taking the money without your consent?" I shook my head, my heart sinking. "No, we never talked about it. I did not know it was gone until today." "Okay," she said. "We will take your statement. We will file a report and give you a case number. We can try to contact Mr. Hamilton and get his side of the story. But unless he confesses, Or unless you can provide concrete evidence that this was theft and not a soured domestic financial arrangement, the district attorney is unlikely to press charges. I felt a wave of despair. This was exactly what Mark was counting on. He knew it would be my word against his. He knew he could charm his way out of it, paint me as a bitter, scorned woman looking for revenge. I walked out of the police station with a case number on a small slip of paper, but it felt like a hollow victory. The system I thought would protect me was telling me I was likely on my own. Back in the car, I slumped in my seat, feeling utterly defeated. "She does not believe me," I said to my dad. "She thinks it is a domestic dispute." "It does not matter what she thinks right now," he said, his voice firm. "What matters is that you have a case number. That is the first official step. Now we move on to the next one." "What is the next one?" I asked wearily. "Crawl into bed and not come out for a year?" He gave me a small, sad smile. "That is an option for later. For now, we call the investigator. We have his initial report about the gambling. Now we need him to dig deeper. We need him to find where that $85,000 went. If Mark used it to pay off his gambling debts, that is not an investment for our future. That is motive. That is proof." A tiny spark of hope flickered within me. He was right. The money had to be somewhere. If we could follow the money, we could expose the lie. "And," my dad added, his voice hardening, "we are going to get you a lawyer. A good one. This might end up being a civil fight, but it is a fight you are going to win." When we got back to the house, my phone was ringing again. This time, it was an unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. "Hello? Is this Clara Miller?" a man's voice asked. It was sharp and impatient. "Yes. Who is this?" "This is Arthur Hamilton," the voice snapped. It was Mark's father. "I am calling to inform you that my son is a wreck, thanks to you and your father's little stunt. You have publicly humiliated him and our entire family." "Your son is a thief," I replied, my voice dripping with ice. "He is lucky public humiliation is all he is facing right now." "How dare you?" he sputtered. "He made a mistake, a poor investment choice. He was trying to build a life for you." "He was paying off gambling debts," I said flatly. "And I have a private investigator's report to prove it." There was a sudden, sharp silence on the other end of the line. I had bluffed. The PI had not found that connection yet, but Mr. Hamilton did not know that. His silence told me everything I needed to know. He knew about the gambling. He knew exactly what his son was. "You are a vindictive, horrible girl," he finally hissed. "Mark is a good boy. He has had some bad luck, that is all." "Bad luck does not give him the right to steal my life savings," I said. "I have filed a police report, Arthur. The next time you call me, I suggest you do it through your lawyer." I hung up the phone, my hand shaking with adrenaline. The bluff had worked. I had hit a nerve. They were scared. Good. They should be. My dad, who had heard my side of the conversation, gave me a look of grim approval. "That is how you do it," he said. "You do not let them bully you. You do not let them control the narrative. You have the truth on your side. Do not ever forget that." Later that evening, Lena came over. She brought a bottle of wine and 2 tubs of ice cream. She did not say much at first. She just wrapped me in a huge hug and held me while I finally let myself cry. I cried for the love I thought I had, for the future that had been stolen from me, for the sheer, soul-crushing weight of the betrayal. When I was done, we sat on the floor of my old bedroom, eating ice cream straight from the carton. "He is a monster," she said, her voice filled with a quiet fury that matched my own. "I never liked him. I never trusted his smile. It never reached his eyes." "You should have told me," I whispered. "You would not have listened," she said gently. "You were in love, and it was not my place. But it is my place now. So you tell me what you need. Do you need me to help you key his car? Egg his parents' house? I have a whole list of petty, satisfying acts of vengeance we could perform." I managed a weak smile. As tempting as that is, I think I need something more. What? She asked. I need proof, I said, my resolve hardening again. I need undeniable, irrefutable proof of what he did and where the money went. The police are not going to do much. His family is going to protect him. My own mother is making excuses for him. It is up to me to expose him, and I am going to need help. Lena put down her spoon and looked at me, her eyes serious. You have it, she said. Whatever you need. We are in this together. What is the first step? The first step, I said, a plan starting to form in my mind, is getting into my apartment. My laptop is there. He did it on my computer. There might be a digital trail. A browser history? A saved confirmation page? Something. I need to get it before he thinks to wipe it clean. But he is probably there, Lena said. How are you going to get in? He is not there, I said. My mom said he is at his parents' house, being distraught. This is our chance. It is risky, she warned. I know, I said. But it is a risk I have to take. Getting into the apartment I had shared with Mark felt like a covert operation. Lena drove me, parking a block away. I had my key, but I was terrified he might be there, despite what my mother had said. My heart was pounding as I walked up the path to the front door. I slid the key into the lock and turned it. It clicked open. I pushed the door open a crack and listened. Silence. He is not here, I whispered to Lena, who was standing watch by the car. I slipped inside and closed the door behind me. The apartment looked exactly as I had left it yesterday morning, a lifetime ago. My wedding day shoes were still by the door. A list of last-minute wedding errands was stuck to the fridge. It was all so normal it made my skin crawl. This place, which had been my home, my sanctuary, now felt tainted, hostile. I went straight to the small office nook where we kept the laptop. It was open on the desk. I sat down, my hands trembling, and woke it from sleep mode. The screen lit up. My background photo, a smiling picture of me and Mark on vacation, mocked me. I quickly changed it to the generic landscape default. I opened the web browser. My mind was racing. Where would he have gone? What would he have searched for? I clicked on the History tab. My eyes scanned the list of recently visited sites. Amazon, news sites, YouTube, all my usual stuff. Then I saw it. Sandwiched between a search for a recipe and a visit to a clothing store was a link to a financial website. Omni Financial, my retirement fund. My breath caught in my throat. I clicked on it. It took me to the login page. The timestamp next to the entry was from 2 days ago, at 2:15 p.m. I had been at work. He had been here, in our home, systematically dismantling my future. I kept scrolling through the history. A few minutes after the Omni Financial link, there was another one. This one was for a site I did not recognize. Apex Global Investments. It sounded official, important. This must be the investment he was talking about. I clicked the link. The website was slick and professional looking. It was full of jargon about cryptocurrency, offshore opportunities, and high-yield returns. It screamed, get rich quick. It screamed scam. I went back to the browser history. After visiting the Apex Global site, his activity got interesting. There were searches for how to hide online money transfers, untraceable bank accounts, and legal ramifications of moving a fiancé's money. There it was. It was not concrete proof that a court would accept, but it was proof for me. Proof of his intent. He was not making an investment for us. He was trying to hide the money. He was researching how to get away with it. I took out my phone and started taking pictures of the screen, documenting every search term, every website visit, every timestamp. My hands were shaking so hard the first few pictures were blurry. I took a deep breath and steadied myself. I needed this. This was ammunition. Then I had an idea. Mark was lazy about his online security. He often used the same password for everything. On a hunch, I went to his email login page, which he had foolishly left bookmarked. I typed in his email address and then the password he used for his fantasy football league, a silly combination of his favorite team and his birth year. I hit enter, and I was in. My heart hammered against my ribs. I felt a pang of guilt for invading his privacy, but it was quickly overwhelmed by a burning need for the truth. I started searching his inbox. I searched for Omni Financial. Nothing. He must have deleted it. I searched for Apex Global. Bingo. There was a single email from Apex Global Investments, dated 2 days ago. The subject line was, "Welcome and confirmation of your initial investment." I clicked it open. "Dear Mark," it read, "welcome to Apex Global. We are pleased to confirm receipt of your initial investment of $85,000. Your funds are now actively working for you in the global market. You can monitor your portfolio by logging into your account with the credentials below." It was not $85,212.41. It was exactly $85,000. What happened to the other $212? A transaction fee? Or had he pocketed it? It did not matter. What mattered was that the money had gone to this shady investment site. I forwarded the email to my own account and then deleted it from his inbox and his trash folder. He would not know I had seen it. I was about to log out when I saw another folder in his email list. It was labeled Personal. My curiosity got the better of me. I clicked on it. The folder was full of emails between him and another woman. Her name was Tiffany. The emails were recent and they were intimate. They were full of plans for the future. Their future. They talked about traveling, about buying a house in a city I had never wanted to live in. Then I saw the email that made the blood drain from my face. It was from Mark to Tiffany, sent the day after he stole my money. "It is done," he wrote. "The nest egg is secured. Just have to get through this ridiculous wedding. And then we are free. A few months of playing the happy husband, and then I will file for divorce. By then, the money will be ours, clean and clear. She will not know what hit her. I love you." I felt like I could not breathe. This was not just a theft. It was not just a betrayal. It was a conspiracy. He had never loved me. He had a whole other life, a whole other future planned with someone else. I was just the mark, the stepping stone, the nest egg. I forwarded that email and all the others to my own account. I took pictures of them with my phone. I saved everything. This was it. This was the concrete proof the detective had talked about. This was not a domestic dispute. This was cold, calculated fraud. I logged out of his email, cleared the browser history of my snooping, and stood up. The apartment felt suffocating. The air was thick with his lies. I had to get out. I grabbed my laptop and the power cord and walked out the door, not bothering to lock it behind me. I did not care if someone came in and took everything. Nothing in that apartment was mine anymore. It was all part of a life that had been a lie. Back in Lena's car, I did not say a word. I just handed her my phone and let her read the emails. I watched her face shift from confusion to shock to pure, unadulterated rage. "Oh, you are going to burn him to the ground," she said, her voice a low, dangerous growl. "And I am going to bring the gasoline." The next morning, I met with the lawyer my dad had found. His name was Mr. Davison, and he had the sharp, intelligent eyes of a man who did not suffer fools gladly. We sat in his plush office, surrounded by leather-bound books. I had my laptop and my phone. My dad was there with me, a silent, solid presence by my side. I told Mr. Davison the entire story, starting with the wedding and ending with the emails from Tiffany. I showed him the pictures of the browser history. I showed him the forwarded emails. I played him a voicemail I had received overnight from a hysterical Mrs. Hamilton, alternately threatening me with a lawsuit for defamation and begging me to take Mark back. Mr. Davison listened to it all without interruption, his expression grim. When I was finished, he steepled his fingers and looked at me. "This is excellent," he said, and for the first time, I felt a genuine sense of hope. This is more than I could have hoped for. The emails to his girlfriend are a prosecutor's dream. They establish clear intent to defraud. This is no longer a civil matter, Miss Miller. This is a criminal case. Grand larceny, wire fraud, conspiracy. He laid out the plan. First, we would go back to the police. Not to the tired detective at the front desk, but to the head of the Economic Crimes Unit. Mr. Davison knew him personally. We would present the new evidence. This would get their attention. Second, he would draft a letter to Mark and his parents. It would be a demand letter. It would lay out our terms in no uncertain terms. The full and immediate return of the stolen money, plus damages for emotional distress, legal fees, and the cost of the canceled wedding. The alternative would be us handing over the entire package of evidence to the district attorney and the press. The Hamiltons care about their reputation, Mr. Davison said with a thin smile. Arthur Hamilton is a prominent businessman in this town. The last thing he wants is a public scandal involving his son, a jilted bride, a secret girlfriend, and a stolen retirement fund. We have them right where we want them. The idea of a public scandal made my stomach churn, but the idea of Mark getting away with it was worse. What about the money? I asked. What if it is gone? What if that Apex Global thing was a scam and he lost it all? That is a possibility, Mr. Davison admitted. But it does not change his criminal liability. And it does not change his parents' liability. They have been enabling him, and I have a feeling they have deeper pockets than he does. We will make it clear that if Mark cannot return the money, we will expect them to. I left his office feeling stronger than I had in days. I had a plan. I had a powerful ally. And I had the truth. The meeting with the Economic Crimes Unit was a world away from my first visit to the police station. Detective Miller was there, but so was her supervisor, a stern-looking man named Lieutenant Graves. Mr. Davison did all the talking. He laid out the case calmly and professionally, presenting the evidence piece by piece. The bank statement, the browser history, the emails. As he read Mark's email to Tiffany out loud, the one about playing the happy husband, I saw a flicker of something in Detective Miller's eyes. It was anger. She was finally on my side. Lieutenant Graves looked at the evidence and then at me. Miss Miller, he said, his voice serious. I want to apologize for the way your case was initially handled. This new evidence changes everything. We will be opening a formal investigation into Mark Hamilton immediately. He explained that they would get a warrant for the records from Omni Financial and Apex Global Investments. They would track the money. They would also likely bring Mark in for questioning. I would advise you to have no further contact with him or his family, he said. Let us handle it from here. I walked out of that police station feeling a sense of vindication so powerful it almost made me dizzy. The system was working. The truth was coming out. That afternoon, Mr. Davison sent the demand letter. It was a masterpiece of legal threats and barely veiled warnings. It gave the Hamiltons a deadline, 48 hours to respond. The next 24 hours were a strange mix of calm and anxiety. I stayed at my parents' house, trying to distract myself. Lena came over and we watched terrible movies and ate junk food. She helped me call the wedding vendors and explain the cancellation. Most were surprisingly understanding, especially after I gave them a heavily redacted version of the story. The deposit money was lost, but that seemed like a small price to pay now. My mother was a ghost in her own house. She avoided me, her face a mask of shame and confusion. She had been so wrong and she did not know how to admit it. Our relationship felt fractured, and I did not know if it could ever be repaired. The call came the next afternoon. It was Mr. Davison. They have responded, he said, and I could hear the satisfaction in his voice. Their lawyer contacted me this morning. They have agreed to all of our terms. I sank down onto the couch, relief washing over me in a powerful wave. All of them? All of them, he confirmed. They will be wiring the full amount, $85,212.41, to your account by the end of the day. They have also agreed to pay an additional $50,000 to cover your costs and damages. They are terrified, Miss Miller. Terrified of the police, terrified of the press, and terrified of you. He explained that in exchange, we would agree not to pursue a civil lawsuit. However, this did not stop the criminal investigation. That was out of our hands now. The police would continue their work, and Mark would have to face the consequences of his actions. The money is just the first step, Mr. Davison said. The justice will come later. Later that day, I checked my bank account. And there it was, a deposit for $135,212.41. Seeing that number, seeing my security restored, was a feeling I could not describe. It was not just about the money. It was about taking back what was mine. It was about winning. But I knew this was not the end. The Hamiltons had paid to make the problem go away quietly. They had returned the money to protect their name. But they had not learned a thing. And Mark was still out there. The criminal investigation would take time. I wanted more than just my money back. I wanted him, and everyone who enabled him to understand the gravity of what they had done. I wanted a confession. I wanted an apology. And I wanted it to be on my terms. I called Mr. Davison back. I have another idea, I said. And I think they will agree to it. My plan was simple, and Mr. Davison thought it was brilliant. We would offer the Hamiltons a chance to mitigate their son's legal trouble. The district attorney's case would be much stronger with a victim who was eager to testify. But if that victim was reluctant, if she felt that justice had already been served in some way, the DA might be more inclined to offer a plea bargain for a lesser charge. No prosecutor wants to take a weak case to trial. So, we made a new offer. I would agree to tell the prosecutor that I was satisfied with the financial restitution and considered the matter personally resolved. I would not lie or refuse to testify if subpoenaed, but I would not actively push for the harshest possible sentence. In exchange for this gesture of goodwill, I wanted one thing. A meeting with Mark, his parents, and my parents, all in the same room. And at that meeting, Mark would look me in the eye and tell me, and everyone else, exactly what he did and why he did it. Their lawyer called back within the hour. They agreed. They were desperate to avoid jail time for their precious son, and this seemed like a small price to pay. The meeting was set for the following evening at Mr. Davison's office, a neutral ground. I spent the next day preparing for it like I was preparing for battle. I went over the timeline of events, the evidence, the emails. I thought about what I wanted to say, what I needed them to hear. This was not about revenge, not entirely. It was about closure. It was about forcing them to confront the truth, without excuses or justifications. My mother was terrified of the meeting. "What is the point, Clara?" she asked, her voice trembling. "You have your money back. Why put yourself through this?" "Because you need to hear it, Mom," I said, my voice gentle but firm. "You need to hear it from his mouth. You need to understand who you are defending." She had no answer to that. That evening, we all gathered in Mr. Davison's large, intimidating conference room. I sat on one side of the long, polished table with my parents and Mr. Davison. On the other side sat Mark and his parents, along with their lawyer. The silence was thick with tension. Mark would not look at me. He stared at the table, his face pale and drawn. He looked smaller, weaker, without his usual confident charm. His parents looked old and defeated. Mr. Davison started the meeting. "Thank you all for coming," he said formally. "The purpose of this meeting is to allow my client, Miss Miller, the opportunity to receive a full and honest account of the events that transpired. Mark, we are here to listen to your confession." Mark's lawyer nodded at him. Mark took a shaky breath and finally looked up. His eyes met mine for a brief second before skittering away. He started, his voice cracking. He cleared his throat and tried again. "I took the money from Clara's account." "Say it all, Mark," his father said, his voice a low growl. "Tell them everything, just like we practiced." Practiced? Of course. This was just another performance for them. Mark recited the facts like he was reading from a script. I transferred $85,212 from her retirement account to my own. I did it without her permission. I used the money to invest in a high-risk cryptocurrency venture and to pay off some personal debts. He conveniently left out the word gambling. And why did you do it? I asked, my voice cutting through his monotone recitation. He looked at his lawyer, who gave him another nod. I was in financial trouble, he mumbled. I saw it as a way out. I was desperate. And Tiffany? I asked, the name hanging in the air like a poison dart. Mark flinched. His mother let out a small gasp. What does she have to do with this? His lawyer interjected. Everything, I said, my gaze fixed on Mark. Tell them about your plan, Mark. The real plan. The one where you marry me, use my money to start a new life with your girlfriend, and then divorce me a few months later. Tell them about my nest egg. The color drained from his parents' faces. They looked at their son, a new horror dawning in their eyes. They had known about the theft. They had known about the debt. But they had not known about this. They had not known the depths of his deception. Mark just stared at me, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. He had no practice script for this. Is this true, Mark? His mother whispered, her voice horrified. Is what she is saying true? He could not answer. He just dropped his head into his hands. His silence was the only confession I needed. I looked at my own mother. Her eyes were filled with tears, but for the first time, I could see understanding in them. She was finally seeing the real Mark Hamilton. Not the charming, ambitious young man, but the cruel, calculating predator he truly was. I have nothing more to say, I said, standing up. I have heard enough. I turned to Mr. Davison. I will uphold my end of the agreement, but I want you all to know, I said, looking at the Hamiltons, that this money does not wipe the slate clean. It does not buy your son forgiveness. It only buys him a chance to face a slightly less severe punishment for his crimes. And I hope, for the rest of your lives, that you remember what he did. That you remember he built his life on lies and theft, and that you helped him do it. I turned and walked out of the room without a backward glance. My father followed me. In the hallway, he wrapped me in a hug. I am so proud of you, he whispered. I felt a sense of release so profound it was almost dizzying. It was over. The fight was over. I had faced my demons, and I had won. In the weeks that followed, the legal process chugged along. With Mark's confession and the mountain of evidence, the district attorney charged him with grand larceny. On the advice of his lawyer, and with the knowledge that I would not be a hostile witness, he pleaded guilty. He was sentenced to 5 years of probation, 1,000 hours of community service, and was ordered to undergo mandatory counseling for gambling addiction and compulsive lying. He avoided jail time, but he now had a felony record that would follow him for the rest of his life. His reputation was ruined. His parents sold their large house and downsized, partly to pay for his legal fees, and partly, I think, to escape the shame that now clung to their family name in our town. I never heard from Tiffany. I can only assume she did not stick around to see her dreams of a new life, funded by my retirement account, go up in smoke. My mother and I started talking again. It was slow and awkward at first, but she had apologized, a real, tearful apology for not believing me, for putting appearances ahead of my well-being. She was learning to see the world not just for how it looked, but for how it was. Our relationship was healing, one honest conversation at a time. I used the extra $50,000 to take a trip, a long one. I went to places I had always wanted to see, places Mark had always dismissed as being too boring. I went by myself. I hiked in mountains, I swam in the ocean, and I sat in cafes, reading books and watching the world go by. I learned to trust myself again, to listen to my own intuition. One day, about a year after the wedding that never was, I was back in my hometown, having coffee with Lena. She was scrolling through her phone when she suddenly stopped and let out a small, sharp laugh. "Oh my God," she said. "You have to see this." She turned her phone around. It was a picture on a local community Facebook page. It was a photo of a man in a bright orange vest picking up trash on the side of the highway. It was Mark. He looked thin, tired, and miserable. The caption read, "Good to see some folks cleaning up our roads." I looked at the picture of the man who had almost destroyed me, now reduced to a community service sentence, paying his debt to society one piece of garbage at a time. I felt no pity. I felt no anger. I felt nothing. He was just a stranger in a photo. A closed chapter in a book I had long since finished reading. "Well," I said, taking a sip of my coffee. "Looks like he finally got a real job." Lena laughed, and I smiled. The sun was shining. My coffee was warm. My future, which I was now building for myself on my own terms, was bright and full of promise. And my retirement fund was safe and sound, growing every day, a quiet testament to my resilience and my strength. I had been through the fire, but I had not been burned. I had come out stronger, wiser, and richer in more ways than one. And that was a better foundation for a happy life than any wedding could ever provide. The journey of healing was not a straight line. There were days when a shadow of the betrayal would pass over me, a lingering echo of the pain. It would happen at unexpected moments. Seeing a couple holding hands in a way that reminded me of us. Hearing a song on the radio that had been our song. For a fleeting second, the wound would feel fresh. But then I would take a deep breath and remember. I would remember the man in the orange vest. I would remember the look on his face in that conference room, stripped of all his lies. And the shadow would recede. I poured myself into my work. My career, which had always been important to me, became a source of stability and purpose. I took on new projects, pushed for a promotion, and found that I was more capable and more creative than I had ever given myself credit for. Before Mark, I had always unconsciously held a part of myself back, deferring to his opinions, tempering my ambitions so as not to outshine him. Now, there was no one to hold me back. I was free to be as brilliant and as successful as I could be. My relationship with my father grew even stronger. He had always been my quiet champion, but now there was a new depth to our bond, forged in the crucible of that terrible time. We did not need to talk about it often, but the knowledge of what he had done for me, the incredible courage it had taken for him to stand up in that church, was a constant, unspoken presence between us. He had saved my life, not from a physical danger, but from a slow, soul-crushing erosion of my spirit and my security. He had given me back my future. About 2 years after the incident, I was at a work conference in another city. I was presenting a project I had led, and it had been a huge success. After my presentation, a man came up to me. He was not flashy or charming like Mark. He was quiet, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. He introduced himself as Ben. He was an architect, and he told me he had been impressed by my work. We started talking, and the conversation was easy, natural. He asked me about my life, and I found myself telling him a little about what I did for a living, about my recent travels. I was cautious. I was guarded. The walls I had built around my heart were high, but Ben was patient. We met for coffee the next day. He did not push. He just listened. He had a calmness about him that was the complete opposite of Mark's frantic, needy energy. With Ben, I felt seen. I felt respected. We started a long-distance friendship that slowly, carefully, blossomed into something more. I was honest with him from the beginning. I told him I had been through a bad experience and that it was hard for me to trust. I did not give him all the sordid details at first, but I told him enough. He did not flinch. He did not get scared off. He just said, "I understand. Take all the time you need. I am not going anywhere." And he did not. He was consistent, reliable, and transparent. He never made me guess what he was thinking or feeling. When we talked about finances, it was a practical, open conversation between two adults planning a life together, not an interrogation of my assets. He celebrated my financial independence. He was not threatened by it. Slowly, brick by brick, The walls around my heart started to come down. I learned that what I had with Mark was not love. It was an illusion, a performance. Real love was quiet, steady, and safe. It was built on a foundation of mutual respect and honesty, not on grand gestures and empty promises. A year after we met, Ben moved to my city. We built a life together, a real one. We bought a house, and this time both our names were on the deed. We merged our finances, but we also kept separate accounts, a symbol of our partnership and our individual autonomy. One evening, we were curled up on the couch, and I told him the whole story, every last detail. From the moment my dad stood up in the church to the picture of Mark in the orange vest. He listened silently, holding my hand. When I was done, he was quiet for a long time. Then he turned to me, his eyes full of a fierce, protective love that reminded me so much of my father's. "I am so sorry you had to go through that," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "But I am also so incredibly proud of the woman who fought her way out of it." In that moment, I knew I was truly healed. The past was no longer a wound, it was a scar. A part of my story that had shaped me but did not define me. It was a reminder of my own strength, of the love of my family, and of the high price of misplaced trust. I did see Mark one more time, a few years later. I was in a grocery store in the cereal aisle trying to decide between Cheerios and Raisin Bran. I heard a voice call my name. I turned and it was him. He looked ordinary. The charm was gone, replaced by a weary resignation. He had gained some weight. His clothes were rumpled. He was just a man in a grocery store. "Clara," he said, a nervous, awkward smile on his face. "Wow, it is you." "Hello, Mark," I said, my voice neutral. I felt no fear, no anger, just a faint, distant pity. "You look great," he said. "Really." "Happy." "I am," I said simply. He shuffled his feet, looking uncomfortable. "Listen, I know it is way too late for this, but I am sorry for everything. What I did, it was monstrous. I was a mess. The counseling helped. I am trying to be a better person." I looked at him, at this ghost from my past, and I realized I did not need his apology. I had already found my own peace. But I gave him a small nod. "I am glad to hear that, Mark," I said. "I hope you succeed." And then I turned back to the cereal, picked up the Cheerios, and walked away. I did not look back. There was nothing left to say. My past was behind me. My future was waiting for me at home, in the quiet, steady, and honest love of a good man. And my retirement account, fully funded and carefully managed, was a silent guardian. A symbol of a security that no one could ever take from me again.